My husband won 8 million yuan in the lottery, then immediately turned around and demanded a divorce. I packed my bags and quickly left, because I knew the apocalypse was coming. A blizzard would rage through every corner of the city. Afterwards, I hid in my self-built house in the countryside, enjoying delicious food. I saw my ex-husband and my best friend cook and eat their own child. It involuntarily reminded me of my past life, of how those two had gnawed at me. Not this life. I'll just wait and see how they survive until the end of the world. I had been reborn. In the living room, Ethan was loudly demanding a divorce. That day, I suppressed an overwhelming hatred and immediately agreed. He didn't expect my sudden acceptance. He hesitated, asking, "Are you really agreeing to the divorce? Don't play games with me." I looked at the clock, May 12, 2025. There were only 15 days left until the disaster struck, no time to waste on him. I resolutely agreed, saying I was ready to go. We could go to the Civil Affairs Bureau now, but I wanted to take all the savings from the house. In the car, the man in the driver's seat couldn't hide his smug expression. I struggled to suppress the impulse to kill him. Unbelievably, the feeling of him slitting my throat with a kitchen knife in my previous life was still vivid. My eyes flashed with murderous intent. "Ethan, this time, I will make you all pay with blood." Due to the mandatory cooling-off period after a divorce, today we could only complete the preliminary registration at the Civil Affairs Bureau and divide the assets. We'd have to wait 30 days to receive the divorce certificate. Leaving the bureau, Ethan still wanted to appear generous in front of me, saying, "Didn't I treat you well? I'm leaving all the assets to you. I'm walking away with nothing." I scoffed. "You're the one in the wrong, secretly having an affair with my best friend, Lily, and even having a child with her. Do you really have the nerve to say that? Not to mention, I've already left that house to you. I'm only taking 250,000 in savings and the pickup truck. That's a bargain for you, so don't pretend to be kind when you're already benefiting. Leaving the house to you is fine. After all, we were once husband and wife, sharing a bed." As he spoke those words, Ethan's display of generosity wasn't false. He thought I didn't know, but in reality, I knew perfectly well. He had won over 8 million yuan after tax. He meticulously planned and plotted to force me out, all just to swallow the entire lottery prize. In my previous life, I was completely oblivious, clinging desperately to the relationship. It wasn't until he brought Lily and their child to move into our house that I finally woke up. What was even more outrageous was that those two had been having an affair even before he and I got married. The child was also born after I married him. For all these years, I always felt sorry for Lily, being unmarried and struggling, and occasionally Ethan would go to help her. Little did I know, the fool from beginning to end was me. Then the disaster came, and they, along with their child, were trapped with me in that house. When food ran out, they finally showed their true colors. While I was sleeping, one of them held me down and the other used a kitchen knife to slit my main artery, drinking my blood and eating my flesh, utterly brutal. I didn't die immediately. My remaining consciousness made me clearly see what those two devils did to me. "This smell is too fishy. Can we really drink it?" Of course, what else would we drink if not blood? And this meat is still so fresh and delicious. Lucky for me, I fattened it up so well. If we don't eat it now as repayment, when will we? While there was still gas, they hastily cooked a pot of meat. Hearing such inhumane words, I finally took my last breath. But precisely because of that, how could I not hate them? I didn't need that house. In a frozen world, an unreinforced house was useless. Moreover, the wedding house Ethan and I shared was just a poorly constructed one. It was already difficult to live in daily, let alone during a disaster. If anyone had malicious intentions, the house offered no defense whatsoever. In my previous life, I died there, so in this life, that house must become the tomb of Ethan and Lily. After leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, I drove the pickup truck away, rushing home to pack my belongings. The advantage of a pickup truck was its large capacity. Once I decided to leave, I wouldn't leave anything useful behind. All my dowry, thick blankets, thin blankets, and down comforters were all taken. My clothes for all 4 seasons, and even Ethan's thick clothes, were not left behind. Snail noodles, instant noodles, and Xinjiang-style stir-fried noodles I like to eat in the kitchen were all packed up and taken away cleanly, leaving nothing. After seeing the house completely emptied by me, I quickly found a few discreet spots to install hidden cameras before calmly leaving. As I returned to the pickup truck and started the engine, I coincidentally saw Ethan bringing Lily and their daughter back to that house. But they didn't stay long. only gathering a few light items before leaving again immediately. Of course, they didn't discover anything unusual in the house. In my previous life, on the very day we finalized our divorce, Ethan immediately went to claim his lottery prize, booked plane tickets, packed his bags, and took Lily and her child abroad for a vacation. The three of them enjoyed themselves for 15 days. When they returned, it was just in time for the icy disaster to begin. In my previous life, he tricked me into picking them up at the airport. On the way back, because it was so cold, he didn't even care that I was driving. He roughly stripped off my jacket to give to Lily and the child. His crude actions almost caused an accident, but he not only didn't blame himself, but also shifted all the blame onto me, forcing me to stop the car in the middle of the road and mercilessly beating me. Even the child I once considered my own took that opportunity to slap me. So, it's not that I'm cruel, it's the karma they created. They must bear the consequences themselves. I drove the pickup truck back to my hometown that night. The road wasn't far. It took less than an hour on the highway to get there. As soon as I saw my parents, I couldn't hold back my tears. In my previous life, when the cold struck, systems froze, electricity, water, and communication were cut off. Until I died, I couldn't contact my elderly parents. I didn't know if they had survived the disaster. I also didn't know how much pain they must have felt when they heard of my death, having to endure the sight of a white-haired person sending off a black-haired one. Thankfully, I was reborn. The events of my previous life would definitely not be repeated. Seeing me cry, my parents panicked and asked what was wrong. I hesitated, but still told them about the impending disaster and how I was killed in my previous life. My mother stood at the door, crying and cursing the ancestors of the Wang family. My father, holding an axe, angrily declared he would chop down that scoundrel Ethan. How could those bastards treat my daughter like that? If they were already together before marriage, why didn't they just get married then? Why sneak around and make things difficult? I chuckled. Some people are born unable to live in the light. They only enjoy doing shady things. But now was not the time to worry about them. We had to quickly renovate the house and stock up on supplies to ensure the family's safety when the disaster arrived. My father put down the axe, and my mother also wiped away her tears. The two of them were silent for a moment before my mother spoke first. Our house doesn't need any renovations. It's newly built. When I had money, I used to watch short videos, mostly about ice disasters. When building the house, I even paid extra for bulletproof glass and thicker anti-theft grates. My father also added, "The gate is a double-layered anti-theft type. Even special forces would find it hard to open. Your mother even made me install electricity on the fence." My mother smiled. "Back then, I said that, and your father called me wasteful. Now it's useful, isn't it? And that's not all, my dear." We also secretly built an underground bunker behind the village, but we haven't stored anything in it yet. Hearing my parents, I was both surprised and overjoyed. My parents truly were amazing. I hesitated and asked, "Do you really believe me, Mom and Dad? Maybe it's just a dream, it's all just a fantasy. I've said this much, what if nothing happens?" My father nonchalantly said, "It's fine. If it happens, good. What you're talking about, even if we buy it, it won't be wasted. Your mother has always liked to stock up on things for a rainy day. This time, if we truly need it, consider it fulfilling your mother's dream." With my father's reluctant acceptance, my mother and I enthusiastically started making a list of supplies. Our house was in the center of the village. Although every household had built new houses, none were as sturdy as ours. It was a 3-story house with a spacious garden, a private parking lot on one side of the yard, and a small vegetable garden on the other, growing common household vegetables. Fortunately, there were almost no residents in the village besides the elderly who didn't want to leave. As my mother often said, there weren't even enough people to play a game of mahjong. Therefore, in our village, our safety could be guaranteed. After the disaster struck, heavy snow would block the roads, and the village's remote location meant people from other villages probably couldn't reach us. Frankly, returning to the village was truly not a bad choice. The supply list, compiled with information from the internet, was soon complete. It was just that my parents suddenly looked a bit awkward and said to me, "Dear, because the house was newly built, the investment at that time was quite large, so Mom and Dad don't have much money left." After a while, my mother scrolled on her phone, and I received a transfer of $130,000 from her. My mother said, "This isn't a small amount either." I had 250,000 from the divorce settlement, plus nearly 100,000 of my own savings, totaling almost 500,000 yuan. I reassured my parents, "We're facing a natural disaster, not the end of the world. The disaster will pass. 1 year, 2 years, no matter how long, I believe the country won't abandon anyone. As long as we get through the initial phase, everyone can get through it safely later." Hearing me say that, my parents finally felt at ease. My hometown was in Tanthan, next to Jiangthan. Tanthan was a small district. Although it had everything, buying a few items was fine, but buying too much wouldn't be good. When it came to purchasing supplies, my father immediately analyzed. Heating equipment usually doesn't break easily, and the quantity we need to buy isn't large. We can buy these in our district. As for other goods, it's best to buy them in Jiangthan. Although 500,000 yuan isn't a huge amount, it's enough to buy quite a lot of things. If we buy too much here, it's easy to attract attention, which isn't good. I thought the same thing and planned to buy in Jiangthan because the supplies there were more abundant. I also intended to rent a warehouse between the two cities to temporarily store the supplies, then gradually transport them back at night, avoiding the attention of the villagers. With my carefulness, my parents also agreed. That's right, even though the villagers are all elderly people, 60 or 70 years old, and usually live harmoniously if something really happens, and they know our family has so many supplies, it's hard to avoid resentment. At that time, people will demand supplies, whether to give or sell. My father lit a cigarette, took a few puffs, and agreed with my mother. "I see you've written down a lot of fresh foods like meat, fish, and shrimp on the list. Our kitchen has a refrigerator, but it's too small and can't hold much. There's also an empty freezer, but I'm not sure if it'll be enough. The weather is still hot, so how about this? When I buy the heating equipment, I'll buy 2 more freezers to bring back. Freezers are cheap these days. A few hundred can get you a good one." Okay, everyone has arranged everything, so I'll go harvest the vegetables in the field. I don't know how long the disaster will last, and supplementing vitamins is also very important. I'll buy more potatoes, sweet potatoes, carrots, and cabbage to store in the cellar. That should be enough for long-term eating. After everything was arranged, it was completely dark. After a simple dinner, the 3 of us returned to our rooms to rest. The next morning, the 3 of us woke up early and began our respective tasks. My father was the first to leave. He drove the 3-wheeled vehicle to Tan Than Market, pointing to various heating and electrical appliances in the store, taking 2 to 3 of each. These supplies did not include delivery. After paying, he made 3 continuous trips with the 3-wheeled vehicle to bring everything back home. By the time he completed his task, the 2 newly purchased freezers were already placed in the cellar and plugged in. My mother was the second to go out. Early morning vegetables are the freshest. Don't think that just because people in the countryside grow their own vegetables, they don't buy them anymore. In reality, there's also a vegetable market here, and the fresh vegetables at the market are even more abundant than homegrown ones. But my mother thought it was still early, so she didn't buy a lot of food, just a little each day to supplement the family. As for me, it was already 7 a.m., and I was clearly driving on the highway, yet I was the last to leave the house. I drove the pickup truck on the way to Jiangthan, feeling very annoyed. It seemed I was still the laziest person in the house. Exactly at 7:48, I arrived at the fresh food market. I carefully selected 15 to 25 kilograms of each type of fresh food. These items had to be transported by myself, so I could only bring them back to the village during the day. It took 2 days, with 3 to 4 trips each day, but I finally managed to get them into the freezers before they spoiled. After dealing with the fresh food and organizing the warehouse, I went to the agricultural market. Since we didn't have much spare money, our goal was very clear: only essential filling foods. Staples like rice, flour, and noodles, 20 bags of each, with each bag weighing 40 kilograms. Spices, cooking oil, salt, and sugar, 20 boxes of each. Vegetarian foods like dried noodles, instant noodles, canned cold cuts, canned fruits, and compressed biscuits. These were essential items with long shelf lives, so I took 30 boxes. Then there was toilet paper and sanitary pads, enough for the whole family for over a year. Finally, water in 500 ml bottles, I took a full 10,000 bottles. For a family of 3, this certainly wouldn't be enough, but at that point, I was almost out of money. After some thought, it would be better to, while the nation's water was still usable, used the remaining money to buy water storage equipment, which was more economical than buying bottled water. After all the supplies were delivered to the warehouse, I began many long nights of secretly transporting supplies, which lasted for several days. It wasn't until 3 days before the disaster struck that I finally completed everything. Just as I was feeling smug about having done so much secretly without the villagers noticing, the 2 super large water storage tanks my father had ordered were delivered to our house by workers. Before the installation even began, the village head came to our door. "Evening, what are you all busy with here? There's been noise every night. That fully loaded truck has been going back and forth for days, and now you're even getting 2 huge tanks like this." The village head's words stunned my entire family. My father quickly asked, "How did you know?" "What do you mean, how did I know? The whole village knows. Elderly people don't sleep deeply. Even small noises at night are heard. Everyone wakes up to take a look when they hear something. Noisy at night, making up for sleep during the day. Everyone wanted to ask but didn't get a chance, so I came over to ask." Feeling even more embarrassed, I looked at my father, and my mother also looked at him. My father pondered for a moment before speaking with difficulty. "It's like this, village head, I won't hide anything from you. My daughter in the city heard a rumor that the weather is about to change, that it's going to be very cold, so we're preparing things to protect ourselves from the cold." The village head didn't react much, just saying, "Summers are hot, winters are cold, it's always been that way every year. But it's only August now, preparing so early?" Seeing that my father had already spoken, I decided to give a serious warning. "It's not like that, village head. This cold snap isn't like previous ones. I heard this news from a certain unit. Although it's a small rumor, I don't think it's wrong. If you believe me, you should prepare heating equipment and stock up on some food." The village head initially intended to refuse, but seeing how much my family had prepared, he hesitated for a moment and then nodded. "All right, anyway, we'll need them in winter, so preparing early is good. So about Mr. Man's situation, I'll ask the villagers who needs what, and then we can go buy things together. Can your truck carry them?" "Of course." After seeing the village head off, my mother was a bit confused. "Dear, why did you tell him everything?" "People say that in the apocalypse, the first to die are the saintly types. Aren't you being a saint?" If the village head hadn't asked, I definitely wouldn't have said anything. But he did ask, and our village only has a few elderly people. Whatever happens won't be too serious. Rather than watching them die and then regretting it after the disaster passes, with others blaming us, it's better to tell them now. Whoever listens, listens. If they don't, it's not our fault anymore. My mother and I both looked very upset, but Dad had said everything. It was too late to say anything now, so we could only try to comfort ourselves. The reason to avoid blame was that if only our family had supplies in the entire village and didn't share, once things broke out, we'd become villains. But if every household had supplies, then whatever happened wouldn't be related to us. I remembered that before I died in the previous life, the blizzard had submerged the first floor of the city. Forget the elderly, even young people would find it hard to leave their homes. So, as long as we got through the initial phase, whatever happened later couldn't be blamed on us. Hearing me say that, my mother was less worried than before, but she still hastily rode the 3-wheeled vehicle stealthily to the agricultural tools store, buying several axes, sickles, long sticks, and various knives to guard against unforeseen circumstances. My father watched for a while and then was speechless. "You really watch too many apocalypse novels. Human nature isn't that bad. But the thing that can't withstand tests the most is human nature. Your daughter died so tragically in her previous life. Do you want to see that scene again?" In my father's silence, this matter was considered settled. For the remaining 3 days, we were all busy gathering goods to help the villagers. The elderly were very cooperative. They were all people who had experienced difficult times. The principle of having food in the house means no panic in the heart. They understood even better than us. Whether they heard any news or not, stocking up on food in the house was definitely not wrong. As for me, I finally had time to scroll through my phone on the eve of the official start of the apocalypse. Currently, the internet was still very peaceful. As I was scrolling through short videos, I saw a video where Lily had tagged me. After their family went abroad, Lily posted over a dozen short videos every day, tagging me in all of them, showing off to the point of almost overflowing the screen. But because I had been too busy lately, I hadn't noticed. It seemed she was starting to get impatient and playing sarcastic games. Some people just aren't blessed, unlike my husband who takes me traveling abroad. The comments section was as usual, with some people cursing the couple and others admiring them. but I only noticed one point: they had returned to the country today. I looked closely at the time, wondering why they came back a day early. Could it be a butterfly effect because I had been reborn? If so, it would be great if the disaster didn't come, but that worry was superfluous. Clearly, the daytime temperature was still 40 degrees Celsius, but in the middle of the night, the temperature suddenly dropped sharply. A whirlwind howled like wild horses, making so much noise that I couldn't sleep. I quickly turned off the air conditioner and ran to the window, looking outside. Snow was falling thickly like goose feathers, just as predicted. The rapidly falling temperature made me shiver with cold. I quickly put on the warm clothes I had prepared and knocked on my parents' door. "Mom and Dad, it's cold. Wake up and put on more clothes." The most terrifying thing about a natural disaster isn't the cold itself, but the sudden drop in temperature. From over 40 degrees Celsius to almost degrees Celsius in an instant, and it was still dropping. Such a difference of several tens of degrees might not even be endured by young people, let alone the elderly in the village. My father rushed out and immediately said, "I'll go call the village head and wake up the other elderly people in the village with him." "Oh my, it's so cold. If you hadn't called, Mom and Dad might have already fainted from the cold. Will you come with me?" "No need, it's too cold outside. You stay home." My father put on all his warm clothes and ran to the village head's house to wake him up. When the village head realized the situation was serious and began calling the elderly people in the village, the indoor temperature had already dropped to degrees Celsius. I continued to monitor the snowfall. Who would have thought that in just half an hour, the snow was already ankle deep? Feeling anxious, I opened my phone to check for information. Rumors of the apocalypse had already started online. In just a short while, I saw several news reports of people freezing to death. My mother was cooking ginger in the kitchen and turned back to ask, "Stop scrolling on your phone. Go see how those people are doing. They might have frozen to death by now." No way, disasters like this last a long time. They didn't die in the previous life, so this life probably won't be much different. Although I said that, I still opened the surveillance camera for that apartment. In the master bedroom, the child shivered from the cold, constantly sobbing, "Mommy, Daddy, I'm so cold, I'm so cold." Lily felt sorry for the child and grumbled, "That be asterisk tch Mia is truly too much, emptying the house of everything. If it weren't for her, why would our child have to suffer from the cold like this?" Ethan also agreed with her, not caring about the time, and called me. "Mia, don't you have a conscience? Where are the quilts in the house? Do you want us to freeze to death?" I added red sugar to the ginger pot and gave a cold laugh. "The quilts are my dowry. After the divorce, of course, I have to take them. Are you saying you let Lily sleep with my quilts, but you also took all the warm clothes? What are we supposed to wear? What you wear has nothing to do with me. If you don't have clothes, just suffer the cold." After speaking those harsh words, I immediately hung up and put my phone on airplane mode. When I looked at the camera again, Ethan seemed so enraged by me that he threw his phone. Lily, on the other hand, held the remote, constantly increasing the heater's temperature, but it was already minus 50 degrees Celsius. What good could an air conditioner in the south do? "Ethan, when it gets light, let's go out and buy some warm clothes. And we need to buy more food too. There's nothing in the house. In this weather, everyone will be stocking up. If we go out too late, we might starve to death." Ethan glared at her. "If you want to buy, go buy it yourself. If we don't have any coats or shoes, how are we supposed to go out? Besides, it's not like we don't have money. We can just give money to someone to buy it for us." As soon as it was light, Ethan still hadn't realized the severity of the situation. He actually placed an order for a shopper on an app, but due to the unusual weather, no one accepted the order. Finally, he increased the shopping fee to 30,000 yuan, waiting for half an hour until a driver finally accepted the order. But due to the weather, it still took 3 hours longer to receive the desired goods. When he saw the delivery person, Ethan was unhappy. "You took too long to arrive. I'm definitely giving you a 1-star rating." He didn't give the person a chance to reply and slammed the door shut with a bang. I curled my lip and turned off the surveillance screen. At this point, it was lucky anyone accepted the order, dreaming of on-time delivery. And that shopper looked familiar. Before I could think much, my father returned, covered in snow dust. I asked him, "How are the elders in the village?" My father came to the fireplace, warmed his hands for a long time, then spoke. "Dad and the village head, along with 2 younger people, went to every house in the village all night. Luckily, we went early. It seems most of the elders were cold to the point of fainting. But thankfully, they're all right, and the fireplaces are lit. There's hot water and ginger soup. Now we can only leave it to fate." My mother brought hot ginger soup to my father, then turned to ask me, Mia, this kind of snowstorm isn't normal. Will it last forever? I remembered. Tomorrow, the snow will lighten, stopping at calf height for one day, but then a more violent blizzard will strike. When I died in my previous life, the snow reached the middle floor of the house. It was impossible to go outside. Hearing me mention death, my parents looked slightly sad. My father finished his ginger soup and asked, So, are there any other dangers during that time? I thought and replied, Actually, it's mainly about food and warmth. The snow itself isn't unusual. As long as everyone stays indoors, everything will be fine. Hearing me say that, my father breathed a sigh of relief. Our house didn't lack food, but because it was still possible to move around outside, we were afraid of others seeing it and causing trouble, so that morning's breakfast was extremely simple: tomato and egg noodles. Just after finishing one bowl and about to have another bowl of ginger soup, the village head, covered in snow and wind, arrived at our house. "Mr. Man, are you home?" It was the village head's voice. My father quickly replied and went to open the door, inviting the village head in. "Mia, be careful, the road outside is very slippery." As soon as he entered, the village head patted off the snow from his body, then sat by the fireplace, warming himself for a long time before speaking. "Mr. Man, we're so lucky because of you this time. If you hadn't rushed over to call me, my family would surely have frozen to death. And all the elders in the village, too. In short, it's all thanks to you." "It's nothing, we're neighbors. We can't just watch people die and do nothing." "It's also because my daughter stayed up all night, didn't sleep, and noticed the temperature dropping. Otherwise, my wife and I would probably have fainted from the cold too." Village head who looked at me. "Mia, I heard your father say earlier that you were in Jiangthan and heard rumors of a weather change, is that right?" "Yes, sir. It was referred to as a rumor at the time, but it came from a related agency, which is why I hurried back to tell my parents to stock up on supplies. It was also convenient to inform the entire village." I further explained, "It's not that I didn't want everyone to stock up more earlier, but at that time nothing had happened yet. Even my parents only believed me after a few days." The village head asked seriously, "So, what next? How long will the blizzard last? Thanks to your family's reminder, everyone has some supplies, but if it lasts too long, I'm afraid we won't be able to endure it." "I'm not sure about that, but in my opinion, while the roads are still passable, everyone should quickly go out and buy more supplies. Food is the most important." The village head stood by the road, hesitating for a long time, and finally decided, "Mr. Man, please come with me. I'll have my son drive one car, you drive one, and I'll borrow another. We'll quickly go around the area and buy a lot of food. For heating, if coal isn't enough, we can burn wood, but food is indispensable." I had just said that the blizzard would stop for a while today, so my father no longer worried and immediately agreed. The village head was about to leave. I quickly said, "We can't just drive out like that. I have anti-skid chains for tires. We must install them to be much safer. And Dad, remember to buy 2 more barrels of gasoline. If we have to burn wood, we need to be prepared. Gasoline will be more efficient. Besides, cars need gasoline anyway." After seeing my father off with the village head, my mother and I sat in the living room, warming ourselves and tidying up the fresh vegetables we had bought earlier. My mother regretted, "I bought too much, we can't eat it all. I'm afraid the vegetables will spoil and we'll have to throw them away. That would be heartbreakingly wasteful." I replied, "How can it be wasteful? Leave a little to eat fresh and pickle the rest. Anyway, we have a lot of salt, and pickled vegetables go very well with porridge." My mother hesitated for a moment and then saw the point. "Cabbage, Chinese cabbage, these can all be pickled, or maybe fry them. Frying preserves them longer. In this cold weather, leaving them outside is fine." I nodded. "Yes, and mix in a little flour. These cabbages can also be used to make steamed buns." Knowing this trip wouldn't be short, I didn't expect the 3 of them to be gone until the blizzard subsided. The only good news was that all 3 cars were fully loaded with goods. Even on the roofs, quite a few items were tied down with ropes. Before I could take a closer look, my father, like a treasure hunter, hugged several boxes of cherries and placed them in front of me. "Mia loves to eat these the most. Before, they were too expensive. We only dared to have a taste. I didn't expect that with this cold weather, no one would buy them. The agricultural market had a huge sale. Guess how much a box was?" 30 yuan, Dad bought 5 boxes. My mother scolded, "These don't last long and you can't eat much in a day. What if they spoil if left too long?" "It's okay, can't we make jam? Besides, the little girl likes frozen fruit. Remove the pits and freeze them solid, they can be eaten like ice cream." I suddenly felt a warmth spread through me. I blinked hard, finally holding back my tears. The blizzard's temporary stop was a precious moment for people to breathe. In their free time, everyone cleared the snow in front of their homes. The village head also did his best to bring food to every household. As the day ended, another passed. Lying in bed, I curiously opened the surveillance camera, intending to see how Ethan and his family were doing. To my surprise, the kitchen and living room were a mess. After putting on the clothes brought by the delivery person, the three of them went back to bed. I didn't know if they had eaten anything, but they clearly had no intention of stocking up. Life in the coming days would certainly not be easy, but their difficult lives made me happy. The howling wind outside the window began again. Hearing that sharp, ghost-like sound, I pulled up my blanket and slept soundly. Waking up after a deep sleep, the temporarily paused blizzard returned more fiercely. After just one night, the snow that had been cleared yesterday was already knee-deep. Taking advantage of the brief period when it was still possible to go outside, the village head announced over the loudspeaker every half hour, reminding everyone to stay warm and to contact him immediately if anything happened. But staying at home for so long was truly boring. When my mother called me down to eat, I opened the camera at Ethan's house again. With just one glance, I suddenly shivered. Lily had been hit on the head, her head covered in blood, hugging Ethan's leg, both grumbling and sobbing. At that moment, Ethan was holding a ladle, stirring a large pot of soup, and in the pot a child was being stewed, his eyes wide open, dead but not at peace. Looking closely at the child's face, wasn't it their son, Leo? I couldn't help but run to the door and vomit violently. My parents saw this and quickly asked, "What's wrong, dear?" My mother sensed something was off and was about to pick up my phone to look. Before I could stop her, my mother ran to my side and also started vomiting. My father was bewildered. "What's wrong with you two?" Seeing my father about to snatch the phone, I quickly yelled, "Don't look." But all three of us looked in the same direction and suddenly vomited in unison. My mother, after calming down, spoke indignantly, "This person is no longer human. Whose child is that? It's only been a few days and they're already cooking children. Why didn't they use that time to buy food?" My voice trembled. "That's his child. It might not be clear from this angle, but I'm sure it's his biological son." Even my father couldn't tolerate it. Too cruel, utterly inhumane. He could treat me like that in my previous life. If he didn't stock up anything in this life, he would definitely follow the same path. But I never expected that the first person he would lay hands on would be his own child. Hearing my calm analysis, my mother's eyes turned red. "My dear, was your previous life like that too?" I gently comforted her. "It's all over, Mom. I'm back now. After the blizzard passes, I'll send this video to the police so he goes to jail. With this crime, he might not be released in a few years." Because the video was too horrifying, my family couldn't eat or drink for 2 whole days. A 3-year-old child's body wouldn't be consumed in just 1 or 2 days. On the 4th day, I told my mother to cook a large pot of pork ribs. Not only did we have a delicious meal, but I also took photos and sent them to Ethan to provoke him. Of course, my phone was still on airplane mode, and I had logged out of all applications that could contact me. Unable to find anyone to vent his anger on, Ethan could only take it out on Lily. After beating her up again, he whispered something into her ear. Under Lily's disbelieving gaze, he was kicked out of the house. I was a bit confused. What was happening? Didn't he have no money? Come to think of it, the money was consumed by me. I had died. How could I know what happened later? An hour later, Lily returned, looking even more miserable than before. The down jacket she was wearing had a few more scratches, and her eyes and the corners of her mouth were bruised to varying degrees. She looked at Ethan with an unwilling gaze, then took out 2 packets of instant noodles from her chest. I found this interesting. Where did these instant noodles come from? While thinking, I logged into the X app that I hadn't used in a long time. Ignoring messages from friends, I found the condominium's mothers group. This group was created by the women in the complex, usually used for gossiping, complaining about husbands, group shopping, and sharing tips. She was very active in this group, which allowed me to always get information first. Scrolling through the chat history, I indeed found some clues. What are they planning to do? Most of the apartments in blocks 1, 2, and 3 have already been robbed. Is that not enough food? Are they still planning to continue robbing? Don't you realize? They're operating systematically. I'm just afraid they'll clear out all the apartments in the complex before they stop. How hateful. As long as they live, everyone else has to die. We must call the police. We already called the police. When the police came, they ran. After the police left, they came back. Moreover, I don't know where they got the information, but they knew who called the police and killed that person's entire family. I frowned as I read, continuing to scroll through a series of other messages. Then, about an hour ago, it's over, they've reached our block 8. Quickly hide the food. Let's see if we can hide it. I don't think I'm the only one doing that. I hope so. I also hid some food, I hope it's not found. It's useless. The food I hid in the bathroom ceiling was also found. These people aren't human, they carry knives, axes, and even guns. I wonder if those guns are real? I mumbled as I closed the X app, immediately opening the surveillance camera in my house. My house in Block 8 had no food. If they didn't find anything, would they spare Ethan? If not, don't blame me for laughing out loud. Sure enough, after only half an hour, a group of people knocked on Ethan's door. When the door opened, the leader was a familiar face. Recalling carefully, it was the delivery man. Ethan clearly recognized him too. He couldn't believe it, pointing at the man. The man drew a knife and, without hesitation, chopped off Ethan's right hand. I, outside the camera, and Lily, inside the camera, screamed simultaneously. Ethan fell to the ground in pain, clutching his severed arm, retreating repeatedly, muttering as if begging. I quickly turned the camera volume up to maximum, only hearing him say, "Spare me, spare me." The leader asked him, "Based on what? I remember your house has no food. Why should I spare you? I can work for you, I have money, I can give you money." The leader scorned, "It's the apocalypse, what good is money? I need food. Today I'll spare your life, but if there's no food, don't blame me for being impolite." Unexpectedly, Lily suddenly knelt beside the leader, hugging his leg and pleading, "Kill him, kill him." The man found it amusing, laughing loudly as he asked, "You want to kill him? Why?" "Because he killed my son and ate his flesh when there was no food." The leader and those behind him all gasped, unable to believe it. One person in the group said, "The apocalypse has just begun, people shouldn't eat human flesh. Now, as long as you're not afraid to die, you can still buy things outside. You might get robbed on the way, but he didn't say this." Unexpectedly, upon hearing Lily's accusation, Ethan immediately yelled, "As if you didn't eat any, you ate no less than I did. After eating all the meat, you're still hugging those bones and pretending to be heartbroken, how disgusting." The leader also didn't expect to hear such a disgusting story just by going out to find food. Looking back at Ethan, he indeed had a heartless and ungrateful face. "I remember this woman isn't your wife, is she?" Ethan and Lily were both stunned. No, do you know my ex-wife?" "Ex-wife?" The leader suddenly sneered. "Do you think I'm stupid? Where is she? You didn't kill her too, did you?" "We divorced." "It's true. We divorced, and I don't even know where she went. She cleared out all the stuff in the house. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this predicament. This is your own doing. What does it have to do with anyone else? If you're about to divorce, why not just be dead already? It's best to be truly dead." Ethan recoiled, but his back hit the coffee table, leaving him nowhere to go. "No, you can't kill people. We didn't kill anyone, never killed anyone." The leader gave a look to his subordinates. A few henchmen stepped forward, dragged Ethan and Lily out, and gave them a brutal beating. After breaking both of their legs, they left. Looking at the two groaning in pain on the ground, I once again sank into thought. Who was that person? So familiar, but I just can't remember. My phone chimed with a message. "Sis, I just passed by your house. Did you get divorced? Where are you now? Do you have a place to stay?" Seeing that familiar message, I finally remembered who that person was. This young man had an accident while making a delivery once. I happened to pass by and saved him. The accident was very serious. His intestines were even protruding. I pushed them back in for him. After that, we became WeChat friends, but because we weren't very close, we never chatted, only occasionally greeting each other when he was out delivering. Was he now taking revenge for me? But it probably wasn't entirely like that. Anyway, I was still grateful for what had happened to Ethan and Lily. "Yes, I got divorced. I'm back in my hometown with my parents." "Why did you come by my house, sis?" "Just passing by, sis. Do you still have enough food at home? The weather is bad lately, don't go out. You too, take care." Closing the message page, I returned to the surveillance screen. Unexpectedly, after just a few messages, Lily had managed to drag herself up from the ground, scooped a pot of water, and put Ethan's severed hand into the pot to cook. "You bastard, quickly take your hand out, I still need to reattach it." Lily gave a sinister smile. "Talk about surviving first. Evildoers must face their retribution." I sighed in exasperation and put my phone down. The blizzards continued for several more days. The first floor was completely buried in snow. The village head's loudspeaker announced several times a day, always reminding everyone to stay warm, and even called individual households with elderly people to ensure they were still alive. To be honest, at this point, to still think of the safety of others, the village head truly was a good person. Several more days passed. When the snow accumulated up to the second-story windows, the outdoor temperature had consistently stayed at degrees Celsius for some time. In this weather, even with a fireplace burning indoors, it was uncomfortably cold. Luckily, everyone had stocked up sufficiently. With a fireplace in the room, an electric blanket on the bed, and wearing thick thermal clothing, covered with several layers of blankets, it was still bearable. That's how it was in the South. Without heating pits, one could only grit their teeth and endure. But what no one expected was that those already difficult days would become even worse. Water and electricity were cut off. We were all completely isolated in our homes. The only comfort was the 3 daily calls from the village head. 3 more days passed, and the village head's calls also stopped. We understood that his phone had run out of battery. My father joked. Luckily, he uses an elderly-friendly phone. It lasted 3 days. If it were a smartphone, it would have run out in 1 day. My mother worriedly asked. The snow outside has reached the 2nd floor. Can our small house withstand it? We go up to shovel snow every day. As long as the snow isn't too heavy, the house will hold up. 5 more days passed. When the snow reached the 3rd floor, the blizzard began to show signs of weakening. Water and electricity were also gradually restored. Not long after, a loudspeaker sound echoed outside. I quickly went to the 3rd floor terrace, took out my binoculars, and discovered it was a drone carrying a loudspeaker. Dear residents, the natural disaster is not yet over, but there are signs of abatement. Due to the extremely serious situation, external transportation is disrupted. We urge everyone to be self-reliant. We will drop supplies from the air to address the urgent needs of the people. Please trust that the government will not abandon anyone. Please hold on, dawn will soon come. The government's encouragement was always the most effective medicine. Knowing that the higher-ups hadn't abandoned us, our hearts finally felt at ease. Life was no longer as difficult as before. Even when I opened The Legend of Zhen Huan to pass the time, I could leisurely eat snacks. Only when tired of binge-watching would I pick up my binoculars and gaze into the distance, looking for supplies being dropped from the sky. Unexpectedly, my unintentional action saved our village from a calamity. I put down the binoculars, rushed inside, and called my father out. I pointed in that direction, telling my father to take the binoculars and look. Right, Dad, they're heading towards us, aren't they? They look like those hooligans from the next village, don't they? Coming all this way at this time, they must be planning to rob our village's supplies. In this weather, daring to come out, there's certainly no other reason. My father immediately called the village head. As soon as he heard that people were approaching us, he immediately climbed to his own rooftop. Sure enough, in the distance, a group of people were piecing together some planks, moving step by step towards our village. My father said, "Village head, this is the first group. We must deal with them cleanly. Otherwise, if the news spreads, many more people will surely come." I nodded. "But we can't go out. What should we do?" I thought for a moment and said, "Village head, use the loudspeaker to scare them. Tell your son to download gunshots and play them over the loudspeaker. If they think we have guns, they won't dare to be reckless." The village head hesitated. "But we don't really have guns. What if they get desperate and try to steal the guns? Then we fight. Are we just going to give our lives to them?" The village head pondered for a moment and then decided to act. He said to the 4 people sitting on the planks at the east end of the village, "You people, don't advance any further. Turn back immediately or the consequences will be very serious. Don't blame us for being impolite." Due to the long distance, the village head couldn't clearly see their reactions, but my father and I continued to monitor closely. Seeing the 4 people hesitate for a moment and then continue to advance, my father immediately reported back. The village head shouted loudly over the loudspeaker, "You brats, do you want to die? Turn back now." But those 4 seemed to be provoked and advanced even faster. Finally, a gunshot rang out and everyone froze in place. "I'm telling you one last time, turn back now. I'm not good at shooting. I'll miss from far away, but if you get close, who knows what might happen." Sure enough, out of fear, the 4 quickly retreated. After the loudspeaker stopped, all 4 left and I chuckled. The village head certainly knew how to scare people. Anyway, after that incident, no one dared to neglect the village's defense anymore. From then on, we began to assign shifts for security. Perhaps because the days were too boring, I thought of Ethan again. Initially, I thought that given the situation, those 2 must have died. Who would have thought he was still alive, and he was the only one? Because Lily was now in his cooking pot, I grimaced and shook my head in disgust. That kind of tenacious life disaster is truly not wrong. Wearing only thick clothes in -50-degree weather, he was still alive. I curled a sinister smile, deciding to add fuel to the fire. I unblocked him and sent him photos of all the delicious meals I had eaten in the past few days. Immediately after, he video called. "Mia, where are you? How do you still have food? Is it not normal for me to be alive and have food? I'm always stocking up on food. Are you surprised? Where are you now? I'm starving to death. Can you pick me up?" I looked at him, smiled, and firmly said, "No." Ethan asked, "Mia, you've known about my affair for a long time, haven't you?" How could I have known? One was my husband, one was my best friend. My trust in those two was instinctive. It wasn't until those two, mother and child, moved into my house and together exploited my body that my hatred reached its peak. Perhaps that's why I had a chance to be reborn. I held my phone, video calling as I walked from the living room to the kitchen. My mother was cooking. One pot was stewing pork hocks, another was frying cabbage buns, and next to them were 2 plates of stir-fried vegetables already cooked. Because of the cold, food wouldn't spoil quickly, so my mother usually cooked enough for 3 people to eat for 2 to 3 days at once. Although the meal was simple, for Ethan, it was an unreachable luxury. With just one glance, he went crazy. "Mia, save me, are you at home? Please save me, I'm starving to death," Ethan cried. "I beg you, I will never cheat again. From now on, I will live a good life with you." Live what life? After the disaster passes, who knows where your corpse will drift to? Dreaming in broad daylight? I wasn't even angry. After showing off, I coldly mocked him and hung up. I opened the surveillance camera again. Ethan seemed truly driven mad by my provocation. He flipped the cooking pot, but unexpectedly the pot tilted towards him, spilling boiling water all over him. To vent his anger, he continued to smash things in the house for a while, then grabbed a kitchen knife. Stroke by stroke, he chopped at the remains of the body that was in the pot. Until that part of the body was almost completely mangled, the knife slipped from his hand, flew up, embedded itself directly into the ceiling, then fell down and pierced his shoulder. Seeing that scene, even I couldn't help but gasp. But as for the person in the surveillance camera, I wasn't very interested anymore. This evidence was enough to send him to jail. Whether he lived or died was up to him. Before dinner, I shared this news with my parents. They were happy for me. Even if he wasn't dead, with all the evil things he had done, his future life could only be more miserable than death. He would never be able to leave prison. His sins would never be atoned for. Of course, if he died, one could only say he was lucky. No longer caring about Ethan, I focused all my attention on the ongoing natural disaster. 2 months had passed since the disaster began. It was too long. Even though we had stocked up on supplies beforehand, everyone had almost run out of food. We learned from the 4 hooligans, sitting on snowboards, carrying supplies parachuted down by the government, and distributing them equally to each household. At this time, the villagers had to unite even more to overcome the calamity together. As if heaven had opened its eyes, the snow, which was still very heavy yesterday, began to lighten today, becoming softer and softer. After 2 continuous days of falling, miraculously, the snow stopped completely. Without the obstruction of the blizzard, more supplies from the government arrived. But no one expected that the temperature would continue to drop, reaching a terrifying -70 degrees Celsius. This was the South. The coldest it had ever been was only around -7 to -8 degrees. Now it was 10 times colder. I couldn't even imagine how one could stay warm and survive if they weren't living in the countryside. Another week passed. The fog in the air began to clear, the dark clouds gradually dissipated, the sun appeared, and the temperature began to rise again. The terrifying disaster, like a nightmare, seemed to have taken a turn for the better overnight. When the temperature rose to degrees Celsius, the younger people in the village, organized by the village head, actively participated in clearing the snow, not needing government directives, simply wanting clear roads for easier visits among neighbors. The miracle was that throughout the 3 difficult months of disaster, countless people died outside, but not a single person was lost in our Mann family village. When the government rescue team arrived and heard this story, they were extremely astonished. After learning all that the villagers had done, they especially commended the village head and my father. Afterward, society gradually returned to normal, and people slowly went back to their old routines. When transportation was fully restored, I drove back to my old house, taking the opportunity to inquire about the situation there. Ethan wasn't dead. Because he was wearing a thick jacket, the knife didn't penetrate too deeply into his body, but he didn't dare to pull it out and lived with the knife stuck in his shoulder for a long time. By the time transportation was restored, the police, who had long received a report, immediately arrested Ethan. I then went to the police station, clarified that there were cameras installed in the house, and provided the ID and password. This time, he truly had no escape. Since we didn't pick up the divorce papers within 30 days, our divorce procedure was canceled. I naturally inherited his remaining assets of over 7 million yuan. After handling everything, I returned to my hometown. In this life, I only wanted to be with my parents and live out the rest of my days in peace.